Let's make it very clear, this is a night about Lena. I enjoyed that. I'd like to think it was mainly for the coat. It's very cold up here. Let's get down to business. This is all about Lena, and I want to share my discovering Lena Dunham story. I remember when I first heard about Lena Dunham. In the space of 1 week in spring 2012, I got emails from every single one of the funny, bright, dirty, on-a-mission women that I know in America, all going, "This show's just started here, it's called Girls," or "Have you heard of Girls?" or "Oh my God, I'm so obsessed with Girls, I have to talk to you about it now, wake up, wake up, wake up." Some just went, "Girls, girls, 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 girls." And I worried that they had been hacked by porn spam bots. The internet of women had been activated. The American lady hive was buzzing with news, and it was all suddenly about girls. So one night, a group of us in the UK watched Girls. I regret to say that because it was not yet available in this country, we did this by illegally torrenting it off the internet, although I will absolutely deny this fact if asked in a court of law by a policeman. And our reaction was the reaction that everyone here and the 5,000 people who applied for tickets in the first morning and didn't get them had. Because I don't know a woman who has seen Girls and not immediately texted all of her friends going, "There is a show about all the things we do, but don't say. There is a show about all the secret things of being a woman. It shows the confusion, the odd bravery, the anxiety, the claustrophobia of friendship, the madness, the bellies, the thighs, the terrible anal sex." The venality and the glory. This show will make you feel like you are normal. It's us. I can finally see girls like me on the telly. I can see me. And all this honesty and brilliance and bravery and entertainment and sheer fucking ladyballs comes from one person. The small, polite, charming, clever as hell, 26-year-old, 8 times Emmy nominated and 2 times Golden Globe Award winner Lena Dunham. It will, therefore, be of no surprise to anyone here that when Lena wrote her first book, The Brilliant Not That Kind of Girl, and where the Jesus in hell did she find the time to write that? Does she have a TARDIS? Lena Dunham has continued to do that thing she does, telling the most hidden, shameful, fearful, awful, specific truths about herself that always have this invariable knack of being the universal truths about us all. Shame over the food we eat, obsessively listing it. Not knowing if you can call a horrible night and a bad man rape or not. Fear and panic and hard work and a hatred of dust on light bulbs, although that one is probably quite specific to her. This woman here is, for many of us, the thing, the very thing, the absolute thing. It is Lena Dunham.
I was gonna hug you. Thank you so much. Thank you. That girl. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here, and I love Caitlin. In fact, it says on Caitlin's book, "I love Caitlin Moran, Lena Dunham," which I felt I could have been more articulate, but then why did I need to be? That's how I feel. And I'm so grateful that she's here with me tonight, and I'm so grateful to the UK for having me. This is a place that's offered me much cultural inspiration. I'm what we annoyingly call in the States an Anglophile, to the point that even I'm like, ooh, look at this rain. Look at all this appealing, sexy rain. I saw a rat in the restaurant at or like a big mouse in the restaurant at my hotel, and I was like, a British rat, just what I've been looking for. But it's been really incredible to be here, and I want to thank you guys. I want to thank South Bank Center. I want to thank my publisher for the state. I want to thank Caitlin. It's just a joy. And on Halloween, no less. which is clearly not as important to you as it is to the people of America, because if they did show up, they'd show up in, sexy cat suits. And the last time I dressed up for Halloween, I dressed up as Louis C.K. I had like a swim cap, and then kind of like a crown of red hair, and big black t-shirt, jeans, went to a party. Every woman was dressed as, a sexy animal or a variant thereof. And one starlet, a drunken starlet, I will not name names because that's impolite, said, she said, "Oh my God, who are you?" And I said, "I'm Louis C.K. And she said, "Who's that?" And I said, "He's a noted American comedian, and I am dressed as him." And then she grabbed my stomach and said, "You did the padding and everything." I was like, "Nope, that's my stomach. You're holding on to the flesh of my stomach." And then it became so uncomfortable that I took off the wig and mustache and tied up the shirt and said that I was a member of TLC from the Chasing Waterfalls video. And that still, shockingly enough, didn't get me laid. And now I'm in a committed relationship and I no longer dress up for Halloween. But thank you so much for having me. I'm gonna read to you just a little from the book before Caitlin and I get into it. So I get on my greatest dream is to be a woman who plays the guitar and sings, and this stool is the closest I'm gonna get. So let me just find the piece. Excuse me, I didn't bookmark it, which is very unprofessional. Very unprofessional. Like, this whole thing is just fucked. I want to be able to blame somebody else for this, but that's just not an option. So talk amongst yourselves, make friends with the person next to you. Okay, got it. I'm going right to page 99. 99. We're there. This is a piece called Sex Scenes, Nude Scenes, and Publicly Sharing Your Body. And it sort of was my way of addressing the constant barrage of nudity questions that I was receiving. Admittedly, more in the US. You guys are chiller over here. I feel, despite your reputation of uptight crustiness, that's not what's happening. I feel welcomed both on a creative and breast level. So this is called Sex Scenes, Nude Scenes, and Publicly Sharing Your Body. My mother invented the selfie. Sure, there were self-portraits before her, but she perfected the art of the vulnerable candid with an unclear purpose. She used a Nikon, a film camera with a timer, and she would set it up, stand against the cherry print wallpaper in her bedroom, and pose. I like having Caitlin there for support. It was the early 70s. She had moved to the city armed with nothing but this camera and a desire to make work. She had left her boyfriend behind, a kindly balding carpenter from Roscoe, New York, who wore a flannel nightgown and knew how to tap trees for syrup. I happen to know he's kindly because we visited him once and sat around his table drinking lemonade, and he didn't seem mad that she'd left him, just happy for her successes and generally pleased about my existence. Sorry, something is happening in this arena. It's not a cold sore. I don't have a cold sore. When she got to New York, she moved into the loft I'd grow up in, a little too big for a single girl and a little too small for a family. She took odd jobs to pay the rent, styling food and selling billiard balls, and once, just once, taking a Japanese businessman on a tour of New York City nightlife. A unique quality of my mother's is that when she's uncomfortable, she expresses her purest and most deeply felt rage, so she was not asked back. In the images she took of herself in the loft, she was only sometimes dressed in a baggy sweater or belted safari shorts, but most of the time she was naked, at least partially. Jeans and no shirt, her pale shoulders hunched, her knees knocking, a round collared blouse and thick wool socks but no pants, the shadowy place between her ass cheeks revealed when she pulled knees to chin. Over time, her hair changed. Long iron sheets became an ill-advised perm, a bob, the ends still wet from the shower. Her armpits tended to be unshaven, a look I regret knowing that my father enjoys. Sometimes she added a potted plant to the image for texture, like a student filmmaker creating a makeshift set of Vietnam. On occasion, she turned the lens toward the mirror so her face was obscured by the chunky black camera body, pulling focus to her dry, heart-shaped lips and rabbit teeth. The same ones I have, the same ones she has since had capped. But mostly the eye is drawn to her nakedness, legs spread defiantly. This wasn't officially her art, but she was committed. The fact that she was shooting on actual film and not an iPhone or a Polaroid bought at Urban Outfitters, a la the selfies of today, lent an appealing seriousness to her fascination with herself. Something about the intentionality of the medium. After all, she had to load the camera, print the film by hand in her darkroom, then hang the images on the line to dry. When her roommate Jimmy, a more seasoned photographer, wasn't around to ask for help, she called the Kodak hotline, which was manned by one single, put-upon gentleman. "It's boiling hot in my darkroom and I've been putting ice cubes in my developer. Do you think that's okay?" Embarrassed by the frequency of her calls, she would affect extreme accents to mask her voice. Imagine going to all that effort just to find out what your bush looks like when paired with lime green rain boots and shining aviators. This wasn't as simple as swinging your iPhone around and pushing your tits together. This took work. My mother is slim, a long torso, loose arms, and a collarbone sheer as a rock face. But the camera clung to her imperfections, the ripple of fat below her butt, the sharp knob of her knee, the massive birthmark on her forearm. I always request at least 4 do-overs per reading. The massive birthmark on her forearm that she had removed as a 40th birthday present to herself. I think of her developing these images, sloshing them around in the photo solution with a pair of salad tongs, waiting as they blushed gray, then appeared in full contrast to see what she really looked like. She convinced her little sister to pose too. Her little sister, a blonde med student with the kind of body designed to sprawl in wet sand. This feather-haired, horseback-riding beauty queen was suddenly sullen when her shirt was off. The camera, that great equalizer. My mother understood, implicitly, the power of it. See these hips, these teeth, these eyebrows, these stockings that bunch and sag at the ankles. They're worth capturing, holding on to forever. I'll never be this young again, or this lonely, or this hairy. Come one, come all to my private show. When my father appeared on the scene, there would be pictures of him too, sitting in the bathtub, holding a frying pan up as a shield. As disconcerting as it is to see your father make a face that can only be described as coquettish, it's the images of my mother that fascinate me. The flash of fear in her eye, or is it longing? The feverish need to reveal who she really is, as much as to herself as anybody. I get naked on TV a lot. It started in college. Pressed for actors who embodied the spirit of sexual despair I was looking to cultivate, I cast myself. Unaware how sex scenes were handled by the pros, I didn't purchase nudity covers or enforce a closed set. I simply pulled my shirt over my head and dove right in. "Do you want me to actually suck your nipple?" Jeff, my confused scene partner, asked. Later, looking at the footage in my college media lab, I didn't feel shy. I didn't love what I saw, but I didn't hate it either. My body was simply a tool to tell the story. It was hardly me at all, but rather a granny panty-clad prop I had judiciously employed. I didn't look elegant, beautiful, or skilled. This was sex as I knew it. Exhibitionism wasn't new to me. I'd always had an interest in nudity, one I would describe as more sociological than sexual. Who got to be naked and why? The summer between 4th and 5th grades, I remember riding bikes with my best friend Willie around the lake in Connecticut where our families congregated for the summer each year. Think Dirty Dancing, but with more known pedophiles in the neighborhood. Or pedophiles, as you say. When I became keenly aware that I was wearing a shirt and Willie was not. That didn't seem fair. After all, my mother had recently told me it was technically legal for women to walk through Manhattan shirtless, even if very few actually exercised the right. Why did Willie get to enjoy the summer breeze on his chest? What was so bad about exposing my own? I stopped, removed my t-shirt, and we pedaled on in silence. In 2010, I got the opportunity to make a television show. The network told me they wanted to see my age group, the concerns of my friends and enemies, in graphic detail, and they didn't seem to be bluffing. If I was going to write honestly about 20-something life, sex was a topic I'd have to address head on. And the sex in television and movies had always rubbed me the wrong way. Everything I saw as a child, from 90210 to the bridges of Madison County, had led me to believe that sex was a cringy, warmly lit event where two smooth-skinned, gooey-eyed losers achieved mutual orgasm by breathing on each other's faces. Thank you. The first time I got naked with a guy, grotesque as it was, I was just so relieved he wasn't deeply inhaling my natural scent or running his hands up my torso to the strains of Chris Isaak. Besides being gross, these images of sex can also be destructive. Between porn and studio romantic comedies, we get the message loud and clear that we are doing it all wrong. Our bed sheets aren't right, our moves aren't right, our bodies aren't right. So when I was offered the chance to make the show, I did what I'd been doing for almost 5 years in far more independent productions. I stripped down and went for it. People are always curious, so I'm going to tell you what it's like to lie in bed with a room full of onlookers and simulate intercourse with someone you may or may not know. Professional actors always give canned answers like, "It's just a job, it's so mechanical," or "He was so fun to work with, he's like my brother." But since no one has ever accused me of being professional or of being an actor, I will tell you the truth. It's fucking weird. Yes, it's a job, but most people's jobs don't consist of slamming your vagina against the flaccid, nylon-wrapped penis of a guy wearing massive amounts of foundation to conceal his ass knee. I've suffered humiliation such as kneeing my scene partner in the balls, realizing under the bright studio lights that there's a thick black hair growing out of my nipple, and finding a lubricated prop condom stuck between my butt cheeks 7 hours after arriving home. It's hard to imagine that anything you do in a room full of lights, old Italian dudes, and bad tuna sandwiches is going to be seen on TV by multitudes, so I don't really think about the audience during my sex scenes. Getting naked feels better some days than others. Good when you are vaguely tan, bad when you have diarrhea. But I do it because my boss tells me to, and my boss is me. When you're naked, it's nice to be in control. And my mother always knew that, hence her Nikon raised high and pointed right into the mirror. She sensed that by documenting her own body, she was preserving her history, beautifully, nakedly, imperfectly. Her private experiment made way for my public one. Another frequently asked question is how I am brave enough to reveal my body on screen. The subtext there is definitely how am I brave enough to reveal my imperfect body, since I doubt Blake Lively is subject to the same line of inquiry. I am forced to engage in regular conversation about my body with strangers, such as the drunken frat boy on McDougal Street who shouted, "Your tits look like my sister's!" My answer is, it's not brave to do something that doesn't scare you. I'd be brave to skydive, to visit a leper colony, to argue a case in the United States Supreme Court, or go to a CrossFit gym. Performing in sex scenes that I direct, exposing a flash of my weird puffy nipple, those things just don't fall into my particular zone of terror. A few years ago, after I screened Tiny Furniture for the first time, I was standing outside the theater in Austin, Texas, when a teenage boy approached me. He was tiny, really tiny, the kind of tiny that, as a teenage boy, must be painful. He looked like a Persian cat's toy mouse. "Excuse me," he said shyly. "I just wanted you to know how much it meant to me to see you show your body in that way. It made me feel so much better about myself." The first result of this was that I pictured him naked, which was stressful. But the second was extreme gratitude for his generosity in sharing, for my ability to have any impact at all on the body image of this obviously cool and open young gentleman. After all, he was seeing a fringe woman's interest film on a school night. "Thank you so much," I beamed. "You're really hot." Thank you. Now I get to go hang with her. I'm gonna go hang with her. Thank you. They're so nice to us. They're
nice
being
people.
really nice to us.
My people are nice people. We welcome you to our country.
I love it. I feel so. And also, there was a sign outside the stage that said no hot drinks whatsoever on stage, but I did it.
Oh, yeah.
I did it.
Tell us about what your day's been like so far. I've been watching your Twitter feed, obviously, and you've already started by meeting one of your heroes and a British icon, so
I
you've
did.
not wasted time.
I met Jennifer Saunders. It was one of those things where, like, it almost never occurred to me that it would even be a possible thing to have happen. So when that was presented to me as an option, they were like, there's this thing, Newsnight, you can talk to Jennifer Saunders, and I was like, I know who she fucking is. And it was really amazing. She was as thoughtful and brilliant and hilarious as you would hope she would be, and bawdy and hot, and I was just thrilled. And I immediately posted it to my Instagram, because how else do you know that something's real?
And what did you talk to each other about? Did you bond over things? Were you both like, yes, we're lady bosses, we're lady writers, we're funny ladies?
Well, it was funny. The producer, who was lovely, kept giving us topics. He'd be like, talk about sex. And we'd be like, we can do that. And then he'd be like, talk about drugs. And Jennifer just looked at me and went, you do drugs? She just asked me, do you do drugs? And I was like, no, you? And she's like, not really. And we're like, cool. But it was, we talked about, lady writer things, and also just writer things, and also I just got to ask her questions about the sort of evolution. AbFab was a hugely formative influence on me, because I always say my favorite characters are ones where there's this massive gap between how they view themselves and how the world views them. Yes. That's one of the reasons I love David Brent, too. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, Adina Monsoon was sort of the platonic ideal of that, and a starting off point, and it was the first time I'd sort of seen a woman on screen behaving madly and badly, and sort of, tearing things up. And she said to me, she was like, when I do the show, I like to wear clothes that are too small for me. And I was like, when I do my show, I like to wear clothes that are too small for me. It's fucking hilarious. And so it was just it's also a beautiful thing. It's how I felt when I met you, when you meet someone you admire and they're as great as you thought they would be, because it doesn't always happen that way.
I love the way that today's turning into a checklist of you meeting people from Britain that you like. You got Jennifer Saunders in the morning, and then when you first announced this date, you went on to...
This is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, you went on Twitter and said, and I quote, if someone can get the cast of Call the Midwife to attend my UK book event, your reward awaits you in heaven. Well, I sent a couple of emails, and you now have in the audience Jessica Maine, a.k.a. Nurse Jenny Lee, Helen George, a.k.a. Trixie, the star of the next series, Charlotte Ritchie, who will be playing Barbara Gilbert, and Miranda Hart, a.k.a. Chummy, if you'd like to kind of have a little... In the way you are.
Can they stand up? Is that going to be too much for them?
Where are the midwives?
Woo!
There.
I can't take it. I started watching Call the Midwife this past summer because I was actually researching for a scene in Girls. I can't reveal any more than that. Spoiler alert. And someone said, there's really great explicit birth scenes on this show. And I watched every episode in the course of 3 days. I was sick for 2 of them and then fake sick for the 3rd. I love it so much. And then when I tweeted about it, I was sent a special and exclusive Call the Midwife bicycle bell. I don't have a bicycle, so I just kind of walk around my house going ding, 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 at my dog and my boyfriend and whoever else will accept the behavior. Really thrilling. Tthank you for being here, ladies. It means more than you'll ever know.
Are the nurses in uniform? I don't know if you've come on duty or off duty. Given that it's Halloween, you could probably get away with it? No.
I feel like if it's Halloween, they want to break from their little outfits. But I would have probably, I wish I'd thought to come in their uniform.
I was going to say, I would borrow their uniforms, I would wear their uniforms.
We should have done that.
So you kicked off with that reading from your book about your family and your unexpected upbringing, and talking about how your mother was kind of, as you put it in the book, an oversharer, and you have yourself become an oversharer. Yeah. Who's winning out of your mother and you in terms of oversharing? Have you sort of worked out who's overshared the most now? Is there a league table?
It's interesting. That's a great question. These pictures of my mother's that I describe in the book, She never actually publicly released them as art. They were sort of a personal project, and then I was kind of rifling through the cabinets one day, as children are wont to do, and located this just like big box of naked selfies of my mother. And because we're not a normal family, she was like, we are a normal family, we have some unorthodox like relationships, or there's just an openness surrounding sex and nudity that would upset Mormons. And she was like, oh, you found my box of naked self-portraits. I wondered when you'd locate that. Like, she just was really chill about it. But my mom's work is super personal, but it's much more disguised than mine is. She's a photographer. Her work, she tends to take pictures of dolls and toys and sort of, there's like, if you know her story, which is that she's a woman who grew up in suburban Long Island, never feeling like in a Jewish family, first generation American Jewish family, sort of never quite feeling like she was able to properly disguise herself in this incredibly sort of suburban environment where all of these Jews were trying to sort of really blend into Americana post-World War II. And so you can feel all that in her work if you know the backstory, but it's much more mysterious, whereas, you know, I've basically shared my address with the entirety of the nation.
Do you ever feel sometimes that you have, though, inherited the family business of sharing? Is it that sense of kind of, now I pass on to you, my daughter,
Well, it's interesting. My parents have at least kind of, you know, used the veil of art to like mask their strange proclivities, whereas I have not. So it's like I've inherited it and then, you know, opened a few more stores. But they're really, I mean, people ask me all the time how they feel about the book, and I think because of the fact that we grew up knowing that accepting their work was a part of our job as their children, they now feel accepting my work as a part of their job as my parents. And so whether they liked it or not, I think they would be supportive because of their inherent belief that you have to express what's in you to express.
And they've been very supportive, and that's a very rare thing usually in creative artists. Does that sometimes make you angry that you can't rebel against your parents and go, they didn't support me at all and they never understood me? You've not been misunderstood by your family.
There was one time that I was sick and very tired and said to my boyfriend, my parents don't even care about me. And he was like, you have lost your mind. Like, that's something, there's a lot of stuff you can complain about, and that's not one of them. I was like, I was just testing something out. But no, unfortunately, I haven't been given that opportunity. I can rebel against other things, but there's something really interesting and special about having these super strong, I mean, we all have super strong intergenerational relationships, but there is something interesting about feeling at times more connected to my parents and their friends than I do to people of my own age group, which has sort of been my weird little fate.
Well, there's a lot in the book about kind of what a weird child you were, and kind of everyone's a weird child in a way, but kind of you didn't really have any friends, you preferred hanging out with your parents' friends, you had a bedroom full of animals, you didn't really socialise, you just watched TV all the time, you were in therapy from the age of 7, sort of a very unusual childhood, and most of the book is explaining that. And then obviously you sort of, that leads to you being an artist and wanting to, and the uniqueness of you and what an odd child that you feel that you are. But the last time I interviewed you, I came down onto the set of Girls 2 years ago.
And everyone was freaking out with excitement that you were there. It was really great. Everyone was like, even if there were the people who knew who Caitlin was and were freaking out, and then there were people who were like, who's that fabulous woman with the Susan Sontag hair stripe sitting in our video village? Like, even the crew who was not yet indoctrinated was intrigued.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was just going around and stealing crisps. That's the main thing I do when I'm on set. It's an enormous buffet with celebrities in it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But the one question I didn't get to ask you, which I had on my sheet at the time, was to tell you that a lot of what you think is maybe unique to your personality is actually down to a medical disorder that you have, which I diagnosed for you informally.
Amazing. She literally, yes. I saw her Monday and she was able to tell me what's wrong with me.
Yes. You are, and I can tell from the way you are hypermobile. This is where you are double jointed, and I know this because I suffer from this myself. And these are the symptoms of hypermobility.
That's gross, right?
Yeah. So these are the symptoms of hypermobility. Anxiety and panic disorders. 67% of hypermobile people have anxiety issues compared to 10% of the normal population. Depression, chronically high adrenaline, chronic or abnormal fatigue, racing heart, poor response to pain medication and anesthesia.
Yep.
Back pain.
Yep. Got it right now.
Yep. very thin skin, which often feels soft and velvety. I can attest to that.
But also, I have bruises all over my legs. There was someone who was specifically hired to cover them up.
Yes, which leads to easy bruising, abnormal scarring, stretch marks, clumsiness.
I don't have any of those, but it's early on yet.
Wait till you get pregnant. Clumsiness, inability to walk in heels, poor upper body strength.
Inability to walk in heels, that's my entire, that's the legacy that I'm going to leave behind me on this earth. This is incredible. Continue.
Yes, poor upper body strength.
Had to ask my sister to lift a small handbag last week.
And a very low tolerance for drugs and alcohol, i.e. being a lightweight.
I literally throw up if I have half a glass of wine. I have a friend who's in this audience, who I won't name, who knows a lot about me and the throwing up. Because I threw up on things that are valuable to her.
Really? Like what?
Just rugs, couches, friends.
Yes. So you can't party then? You're not a partier?
I mean, there's literally not one symptom. But the thing that is confusing to me is that I consider myself to be an amateur doctor, and I can't believe that through my extensive symptom Googling, I've never located this.
Everything that you thought was a personality was just, in fact, a medical illness.
Oh my God.
Your entire art is simply around a lack of collagen in your
What
joints.
about thinking all your friends are mad at you all the time?
No, that's you.
Okay, got it.
That's just you. You've got that one.
Just seeing what else could be cured. So how can you said I should do Pilates.
You need to do Pilates, yeah.
Oh boy.
It's all down to as with everything, it's always down to the pelvic floor. You've got a lot of core crunch. You've got a lot of crunches coming to you. There's a lot of plank.
I know, without even thinking about it, that my pelvic floor is bullshit. I feel positive. Thank you. Guys, Caitlin Moran, MD.
I watched a lot of Doogie Howser, MD, and I liked Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. I like to diagnose on the hoof.
Amazing.
But anxiety is one of the ones that I find really interesting. You talk a lot in the book about your anxiety disorders. First of all, just to give an idea of sort of where your anxiety levels are at the moment, when was the last time you got anxious?
Last time I was anxious?
Yes.
10, 15 minutes ago?
Oh.
I was anxious because my texts to America weren't going through, and there was an increasing sense of, it wasn't just a normal ugh, that's annoying. It was like, if these texts don't go through, the people I care about aren't going to know I'm alive. They're going to be disappointed, angry, or worse off, they won't even care. I was like, I go down many, many roads throughout the day. And I've learned to manage it, but even just sitting over there when I was reading, I was like, my jaw is aligning strangely tonight. It's boring and sounds like a cartoon of an anxious person, but do you live with that kind of dialogue in your head?
Yes, no, totally. When would you expect to be anxious again? Kind of like, when will the anxiety train come back through?
Well, I guess after we get off stage. I feel great right now. I love talking to you. But I guess after we get off stage, I'll be concerned about finding the people that I need to find and making sure that they feel good and making sure that the Call the Midwife cast knows how happy I am to see them. And then that's literally a serious concern. I'm like, what if they don't feel the magnitude of my gratitude? And then it will probably abate around 11, and then I will, eat enough so that I can fall asleep. Which is a great way to live your life. Thank you.
Have you got to the point where you start to think that anxiety might be a good thing, though? Would you create as much if you were calm? Because there's two things with anxiety, isn't there? On the one hand, you think too much, you worry too much, you feel too much. But then if you say that sentence differently, I think too much, I feel too much, that's a good thing.
Well, it's interesting. I'm of two minds about this because I used to very much be of the school that torture was what created art. The two things had to walk hand in hand. And my dad once said something amazing to me where he said, fear isn't what keeps the plane in the air. And that was the thing that kind of really, it was sort of a little bit Zen coin that he gave me that kind of cracked something open for me, which is so many of us do have this sense that by worrying, we can prevent what's challenging about life. But I have to tell you that everything that's really thrown me for a loop has not been the thing that I thought to worry about. And I think that there is something, obviously pain can cause you to create in a very deep way, and creating work is one of the ways that we process the things that we've been through. And I guess it could be argued that anxiety, sort of that constant cycle of fear, keeps you productive because it's all about this, I want to get things done while I'm on this earth, never stop, never sleep till I'm dead. But I truly believe that there's a way to make work and to be happy, and I wish that for all my creative friends.
Have you got that yourself, though? Because it does seem that you kind of overbook your life. I don't know whether you've recently got it more in hand, but again, when I came down onto set with you, I was talking to your PA afterwards about when your next day off was. And she said, oh yeah, Lena's got Saturday off, but she's going to make an app with P. Diddy on that day. And it was like, well, that's...
P. Diddy dropped out. P. Diddy dropped out of the app. We're still friends, but it was complicated. But no, you know, I think this year for me, 2014, and has been a lot about the power of saying no. I think it's a big issue for everybody, but specifically for women, no is not a word that we're taught when we're young, or not enough of us are taught, or we're not taught to say it often enough. And I think that there's a sense that you need to be amenable and pleasing and give people what they want. And also, when you're a woman and you're successful, you feel like you want to apologize for it and you want to give everybody a piece of what you have, lest they think that you don't deserve it. And so there's this, for me, this year has been about saying no. Like, there's a lot of really wonderful things in my life, and I feel incredibly lucky, but those things won't get taken away if I set boundaries for myself. And in fact, setting boundaries is the only thing that allows us to continue on. It's the only thing that allows us to keep our light on inside of us.
I'm wary of saying, being a woman, it's different, because I spend all of my life going, being a woman, it's different, but that's what feminism is. You just have to do that boring thing of going, it's different for men and women.
Yeah.
But I do notice, you know, the age that you got famous and the amount of power and exposure that you had at that age, there was almost like a kind of moral burden put upon you, like kind of everything that you did was questioned, like kind of, you know, when it was announced how much money you were earning, it was like, well, why is she being paid so much money? Why doesn't she give it away? Why doesn't she get involved in these issues? Kind of like, it was, you were expected to not only be really funny and really clever and incredibly hardworking, but also to have this moral dimension that when I see most 25-year-old guys get famous, they're all just like, hey, I'm going to find some 15-year-old girls and drive a car around. I'm Justin Bieber.
It's funny, I remember being on my way to South by Southwest to screen the first series of Girls, and a young, fairly famous actor was in the airport with me, clearly still drunk from the night before, on one of those carts that like fancy people get taken to the airport in, being like, what's up, motherfuckers? And I was just like, oh my God, the amount that I don't even feel comfortable purchasing a pair of shoes not on the internet, lest I be seen buying shoes I don't deserve, is so extreme. The idea that I could be wasted in the airport on a golf cart,
Yeah.
that must be a fucking pleasure. And I do think that's real. And it was always awkward for me because I was raised in a household, and this isn't everybody's life, where we were told, like, you don't ask people about their money, you don't talk about your money, it's not polite, it's not like, you know, you either suffer or profit in private. And I also was asked questions about it in a way that I truly have never, ever heard any man engaged on the topic. And it was funny, I did Howard Stern recently in the US, and I really like him, I think, despite the fact that we met because he said I looked like Jonah Hill and then wanted to apologize on air. I really do like Howard Stern. Yeah. But he was asking me about money, and I said, you know, I don't feel that men are challenged this way when they make a living. And he said to me, no, I think you're wrong. We talk all the time about how much athletes make, and I don't think you're right. I don't think it's a specific thing. I think we're just obsessed with money as a culture. And he kept moving, and I was kind of paralyzed for a second. And then I went, no, I need to go back to that. You're wrong. It's really, I just couldn't let that point go because it felt like we were right at that moment an example of me asserting and him dismissing. We were the whole problem in action. And so I needed to I felt like if I can just get Howard Stern to agree with me, I can fix the problems of feminism forever. And then he was like, okay. But yeah, it's had its challenging moments, and I have to obviously feel grateful because I get to be here with all these beautifully kindred people and engage with all these awesome folks, and not everybody feels enraged for everybody else's successes. And, you know, I'll say, I completely recognize that we live in a society where entertainers are unfairly paid for their work, and, you know, teachers and healthcare workers are denied. And so the best thing that we can do as people who've been put in this unfair and unnecessary position of privilege is to talk about things that we believe in and share both the reach of our voices and the money that we amass to do things that we're passionate about, but women should not be forced to represent that problem for everybody else. Oh, thank you.
And did Howard Stern agree with you? Did you make him agree with you in the end?
Yeah, he was like, I was like, have you ever heard somebody like talk about how a male CEO is overpaid? We talk about how much basketball players are paid because it's crazy, because they're paid millions and millions of dollars to like play 5 games a year, then beat their wives for the rest of the time. And so I think that is the issue there, but the way that Sheryl Sandberg has been ripped apart in a way and scrutinized for not being real enough, when it's like, she's the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world. She's the CFO of one of the biggest companies in the world, and we're not batting an eye when all the men in tech, take their yachts and 9 mistresses around the globe. And it's the fact that we're not able to see that, or the fact that anyone's going to debate me on it, is ridiculous.
Well, this is one of when we saw each other on Tuesday, this is one of the things, and I've written about you, because I'm just watching what you've had to go through in America. It made me really annoyed because there's this underlying presumption that that kind of women, particularly feminism, is waiting for some kind of feminist Jesus superhero who will come along and fix all the problems of 3.3 billion women in the world with one TV show or one book or one film or, one tour or whatever. And if you just reverse that for a minute and think that if we were expecting all the men of the world to be waiting for one man to come along and lead them, and write one film or one TV show that spoke for all of them, we would never in a million years be that crazy.
No.
And a lot of the stuff that's happened with the way that you've been written about is kind of, it's sort of this, if you hadn't watched any of your stuff and you'd only read about you in the press, because you're so smart and you're bold and you cover all these topics like feminism, racism, abortion, drugs, eating disorders, OCD, rape, and we can spend all evening talking about these things, and for the press it's a chance for them to be able to talk about these really serious issues. We forget the really big thing is that you're incredibly funny. You're making this kick-ass entertainment show that entertains millions of people. We forget that it's a light-hearted and joyful thing.
It was funny, I did this interview on the first day that the book was out in the US, and they call you to do a pre-interview before you go on a talk show, and they were like, we want to talk about body image, we want to talk about the date rape essay in your book, we want to talk about racism, we want to talk about what's happening in Ferguson. I gave all my answers, and then they were like, but could we also make it funny and fun? And I was like, then ask me about food, I don't know, I'm not...
Well, this was one of the chapters that I wanted to bring up because in the review of the book, and sort of I've seen people talking about the book, and one of the most controversial chapters has been the food chapter, where you list everything that you eat for a month. And some people have gone, is this navel-gazing too far? Is this far too much introspection? I love that chapter because if you read all the celebrity magazines, every single female celebrity that is interviewed is asked what she eats. And it's always some bullshit fucking list of kind of kale smoothies and all this kind of stuff.
Oh my God, it's always you see in Us Weekly that little sidebar that's I had a small salmon patty for breakfast.
Yeah.
Crazy. And part of the reason that I want to share mine is because I was amused when I reread it by the fact that it just goes further and further off the rails. I start kind of in obeyance on whatever stupid diet I've been given, and it just gets weirder and weirder. It's health food mixed with salami, mixed with laxatives. The whole thing is just falling apart. And also that experience of being asked to write down everything you eat, it's an exercise in shaming yourself.
Well, it's also, and the thing is, the chapter, it will make you, I had conversations with all the women that I know after we'd read this chapter, and, on the one hand, it's, well, I'll just read it, because the thing is that it starts all these conversations. It's one of the most truthful things that I think you can write. I think, nearly every woman I know has some kind of eating issue. I can't eat in front of someone who's not eating, I think we all have sort of weird things about food. So anyway, I'll just read quickly from Lena's things. It's a really revealing thing, but it's also incredibly funny. So this list of all these things that you've eaten, quarter of a Granny Smith apple, 40 calories. Quarter roast turkey on rye with lettuce and mustard, 250 calories. 2 pieces of prosciutto, 70 calories, ? Total calorific intake, 1,410. Notes. I did some cocaine this evening. Joaquin showed up at the bar and I said I couldn't drink, so he was like, do this cocaine, just a bump. Then we went to another bar for hamburgers and I was angry and got in a cab. But I'm still feeling good about food, not emotional. I was getting mega compliments on my look at the bar. I'm still coming up short in the fruit and veggie arena. Tomorrow I'll start the day with a reasonable serving of yogurt and some dates, then have lunch and dinner, full to bursting with veggies. That's what this body needs. Presumably you're still high on cocaine as you're writing this.
100%. When I reread it and I saw that's what this body needs, I almost died. I couldn't, by the way, I wish you had read my audiobook. That was a delight. But yeah, I was definitely on cocaine. And I was also going through this phase where I was becoming more and more unhealthy because I was eating at odd hours. I was putting weird stuff in my body. I was drinking tons of caffeine. I was walking around like wired and hungry, and then I would see my friends, and I don't know if it was real or fake. I'd be sure that I'd be like, she's so jealous. I felt very proud. I told this story on the radio yesterday, but my sister and I Googled to see, I'd done a signing at Waterstones. We were like, let's see if anybody posted anything cute or fun, or I wanted to read about myself. And we were Googling, and the Daily Mail said I had debuted a noticeably slimmer face. It was so funny. Debuted.
Premiere.
And it looks it could not look more the same, but it was so weird because I was both enraged from a feminist point of view and also kind of like, thank you. Like there's still a part of you that's walking around being like, enjoy my noticeably slimmer face. I sure do.
It's a good dual reaction to have. Fuck you, but thank you.
Yeah, that's how I feel every time I'm catcalled. That's the horrid part. There's been a lot of catcalling conversation in the last few days, and the thing that I think is the most destructive is that it's horrible and it's validating, and that combination is super dark. And so that's something that I think about a lot when men yell at me in the street, is like, I'm enraged that this is the culture we live in, and I'm enraged that that makes me feel better walking into this meeting.
Well, that's most of capitalism and consumerism in a nutshell as well.
Yes,
it's wrong, but it feels so good sometimes.
I know, it's awful.
I'm glad you mentioned the Daily Mail, because I wanted to talk again, I wanted to talk about red carpet fashion.
Yes.
And one of the recurring tropes in the newspapers is printing a picture of you wearing whatever the hell you want and looking happy and comfortable and bright and jolly on the red carpet, and everyone just going, ugh. And we've got a comedian here called Sarah Millican. I don't know if you've seen her stuff, but...
I've heard about it, and I really want to engage on a deep level.
I suspect you would get on like a house on fire. She is not afraid to call a vagina. And,
my favorite and the only kind of woman for me.
And Sarah's here. Do you want to wave your hand, or do you want to stay shy, Sarah? You are quite shy, aren't you, Sarah? She's here somewhere. She's driven all the way down from Manchester. Hello, darling.
This is my dream convention.
Sarah went to the BAFTAs recently in a really beautiful, jolly, floral dress that she loved, and the press and Twitter the next day were just all over it, just going, why is she wearing this? This is horrible. I hate this dress. And she wrote a brilliant column for the Radio Times saying that first of all, that she didn't care what these people said. She'd cried a lot, but then she went, I don't care what these people have said. I'm going to wear that dress next year and every year at the BAFTAs. And
amazing.
Just fuck you. And then I wanted you to extend that campaign, Sarah, to talking to everybody you know who goes to the BAFTAs and getting them all to wear the same dress as well. So it's some kind of unionization of women who don't give a fuck, kind of.
Love it. I love the idea of just like a huge gang of women in floral at the BAFTAs, just taking, like you look out into the front row and the Daily Mail can't even do anything because there's more of them than they are of the Daily Mail staffers, and they'd be overpowered and injured if they were to fight back.
Yes, standing there like a big floral army, just like, this is the uniform now of being a woman, fuck you.
Yeah.
But the psychology behind the red carpet's really weird because, I mean, it's basically set up like a competition. You have to enter this competition in which you are then ranked with every other woman there, most of whom who aren't writers and who have to medically sit down and eat a lot of crisps in order to be able to write.
Well, it's interesting. Do you say you have to medically sit down in order to be able to write?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the science of writing.
100%, unless you sit at you'd work at a standing desk, which is an insane thing to do.
No.
But it's real, you're exactly right, and it's weird because you're going there to engage in one kind of competition about your work, and then there's another competition, and I guarantee you there are a number of actresses who would rather be voted best dressed than win the actual award.
Yes.
But it's a weird thing because so much of it is people being angry that you didn't dress for them. You didn't dress to their tastes, you didn't dress to please them, you didn't dress to, I mean, if I'm gonna go and spend 8 hours standing up and listening to us celebrate the cast of 2.5 Men or whatever we have to do, then I'm gonna wear something that I feel good in and that amuses me, and whatever nude satin mermaid fishtail gown that you're now contractually required to wear to these events, I'm not interested. And it's an interesting thing because people take it as an almost personal offense that you don't share their same desire to be seen and accepted. And it's interesting because, it's the amount of, what were you thinking rage is like, you really think about how much those people must spend just thinking about sort of, blending as they walk down the street, and what an uncomfortable state that must be. And I have my eyes fixed on a girl in glitter who's making me happy as this whole thing. She's awesome, and she's saying, my focal point as I talk about this.
Well, I can remember again when I came and interviewed you, I think you were going to the Emmys the next week, and I was like, what are you going to wear? And you were like, a cape. Maybe a silver cape, and I wanted to do star jumps all the way down the red carpet. It was just like, that's what would make that fun. That was what you wanted
and I
to do.
didn't end up wearing a cape, but I did wear a dress that I felt really good about that everyone else hated, which was the same thing. And it's really a pleasure to embody yourself. And I think there's this misconception that when women dress in a way that isn't sort of, exactly in line with the style of the moment, they're attempting to kind of like, attract a certain kind of attention or confuse people or almost like troll the audience, when don't people understand that dressing like yourself feels really good?
Well, it's also a weird misunderstanding of culture as well. It's just kind of like, you are basically classically a bit weird. You're a bit countercultural. For them to not, it's got to be, no, you must always wear a gown. There's a certain point. You can be as funny as you like all the rest of the time, but when you're on a red carpet, it's time to stop being weird and countercultural and enjoying bright colours, and you must wear what everybody else wears, which seems...
And people love a Pygmalion story. Like, that's their favorite thing in the world, is like, she came to Hollywood kooky, and look at her now. She is normal.
Yes.
And
there's also that huge pressure as well, and I've seen it happen to other women, and I don't judge them, but you start off weird and a bit overweight, and then at the point where you become really successful, then you suddenly lose 1.5 stone and you look very glamorous. And if you want to do your Cinderella thing, that's fine, but I'm always so happy when I see a girl who's like...
It's interesting, and then everyone always goes, it's just a part of growing up. I started as a child, I lost my baby fat, and I like to feel really strong and professional in the workplace, and you're right, it is fine. It's everyone's prerogative to transform many times throughout the course of their life, but it is interesting, and I have that habit, which I have a feeling you have too, where when someone tells me not to do something, I have to do it 8 to 10 more times.
Oh, yes.
And so that's a big part of the red carpet dressing for me. And it was funny, everyone acted like the dress that I wore to the Emmys this year, the big pink thing, was like an effort to like, really ruin people's day. But the funniest part is that I thought I literally was like, well, I finally nailed it.
Yeah.
But that's not what they pay us for, Caitlin. They don't pay us to wear that dress.
No, absolutely. It's not part of my job.
No, we're not stylists.
I want to be the weird people in the corner. I don't want to be competing with, it's not a competition. I'm not competing. I step out.
Me neither. Stepping out. Tag out.
As a geeky, nerdy person, and the thing is, I sometimes think that you may not want to hear people talking about the way that they work, but I presume that everybody here probably has at some point seen what Lena's done and thought, maybe I could write too. Maybe I could make a TV show. For me, that's the great power of what Lena does. When you watch these shows and when you read her stuff, you just go, okay, so they let people like that make shows now. They let them write books. I see how I can do this. So I want to talk sort of geekily and technically about writing with you for a minute.
Love that.
What do you need to eat to write? Are the substances you need to put in your body to write?
I drink a lot of green tea, which probably doesn't help with my beating heart and hypermobility. I go through weird kicks where it's like I'm eating only English muffins for 7 days at a time. Like, I go through weird food obsessive phases, but I like to start the day with I'm not a coffee drinker, so I start the day with a very large breakfast.
Yes.
Which I feel good about. I read a book called Daily Rituals. Did you ever read this book? It's just a really amazing account of like what many artists, writers, scientists, composers, actors, what their daily routine kind of looked like on an average day. And I found out Georgia O'Keeffe ate like the biggest breakfast in the world that included like meat, chili, and like 9 kinds of sausage and bread. And so I felt better, and she looked great. So I felt better about that. And then, I wish that I had more of I wish that I had more of like a set diet. My fridge is totally empty. I live completely on all manners of takeout, and I'm close enough with the people at the takeout place on my block that they gave me a staff t-shirt. What do you eat to write?
Well, we used our local takeaway so many times that it got to the point where we had to put on different voices when we rang them up because we were shamed that they would recognize us. It was
That's
just
amazing.
That became quite bad. I'm mainly on carbs now. It's I think I read something somewhere that was good brain food, so it's crisps. I
Yeah,
had to
good.
eat that big bag of crisps that they had in our dressing room before I came out here because this felt like kind of prepare yourself for work. You can use your
where
brain.
you needed to,
Eat the crisps.
I feel like nothing, I've already talked about this, but I've eaten like 6 crumpets a day since I arrived. And I feel like if you have that and just, a little bit of fruit, you're good to go. That's a good diet.
Did you end up eating mince? You were recommended to eat mince while we were here.
I did.
Just
I ate
boiled
it today.
mince.
I ate some mince and potatoes. And it was amazing. It was true the definition of comfort food.
Welcome to our bland yet fortifying food.
I loved it. I was kind of pretending I was in Oliver, being like, I have to eat all my mince before they'll let me go play in the yard or whatever.
And do you wear something, specifically something quite sweaty, sweat-covered and dirty and stained and comfortable?
Yes, my pajama collection is bigger than my regular clothes collection. Yeah. I've added to it on this trip, actually. And so I have a few just like big, I have this t-shirt of my mom's from the early 90s that says Women's Action Coalition, and it has like a pissed off suffragette, and it's full of holes, and it's 100% the coolest thing I own. So if I can wear that and a pair of men's triple XL pants, I'm happy. Do you dress like a slob?
Yes. I mean, obviously I've made a special effort tonight, but no, sweaty things. I like smelling my own animal smell. That makes me feel more powerful. The more I can incubate my own smell around me, like a miasma, and it also scares people away from you as well. It's like I'm busy.
Perfect.
I'm projecting a smell that means you can't. A sweaty, panicky, anxious, writing smell.
Yeah,
that I think.
perfect. I know it well.
Yes. And are you a reliable writer? Are you one of those people that likes to watch deadlines whizzing by, or are you, nope, it must be filed exactly on the point?
I would say I'm like always within 2 or 3 days. My book agent's here, she might not agree, but I feel like when I mostly hit it, and especially with the show, you kind of have to. Like, you can't at a certain point, you're doing it. So you can't let a script fly by too much, or else the brakes are put on the whole process. And I also don't like the feeling of disappointing people. I find it very panic-inducing. So whenever I have really gone past a deadline in an extreme way, it has not felt good to me. But I would say I'm down to the wire. I'm not handing things in a couple days early.
No.
No, but are you a deadlines fly-by person?
Well, my theory on deadlines is that you become cleverer probably every minute. So if you delay writing something right up until the deadline, you can be 2 or 3 days cleverer than you would be if you'd written it in advance.
If you'd started it before, so ultimately they're getting a better product.
Always leave it to the last minute. One thing I've noticed, because I feel bad about it because I do swear so much, is that you do not swear or cuss that much.
Really?
For a woman whose show includes a lot of bumming and, you're very politely spoken. How do you feel about profanity? I know also that you don't like toilet humor. You said you hate it, and the day that you embrace it will be the day that you no longer have anything positive to offer the world, which...
Yeah, I don't love toilet humor. I say diarrhea a couple times in the book, and it was hard for me. I had to be like, this is really important to the story, and so I'm going to do it, but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. But yeah, it's like I just get really cringe. I don't mind when other people do it. It's just not for me. It's like makes me feel really self-conscious, which I know sounds ridiculous.
Yes, it does.
But I love cursing. Cursing is so funny. I think I once had a teacher say to me in college that cursing was a crutch, and I think it affected me in that way that only, sly things teachers say can. And so he was like, if you want to say fuck, always think about what the real word that you want to use is, which isn't always fun, and there's definitely times where I'm just on like a real fuck parade. But I've tended to say that, and I also think there's something in girls. I always do try to, whenever we're doing improv, I always tell the actors to kind of like mind their fucks. Like I want them to keep it to a minimum, only because we're doing so much stuff that can be hard to, that isn't always palatable, that it's nice to just have, a clean line of fuck-free dialogue.
All right. So is it a balancing act then? In exchange for doing something very physically graphic, you will withhold swears and fucks.
Yeah, and also,
my language will be dainty, but my visual stuff will be
But
graphic.
there's nothing I love more than like a swearing woman. That's the best. It's a really good look. I just don't think it's one that I can pull off.
Oh, thank fuck. I was really worried you were judging me. I
No.
try not to swear, but it comes out. I'm very sorry.
You've got to do it. I want you to do it. We all are here to have you do it.
We've got to do questions from the audience in a minute. There's a couple of questions that I have to ask you selfishly and keep hogging your time while we're on stage. I want to talk quickly a bit about girls. There's particularly several sort of issues and things that happen in girls that I found particularly... Oh, God, no. First of all, I want to ask you this question in case we don't get time. Is being friends with Taylor Swift as much fun as it looks?
I would love to be able to tell you guys that you're not missing out on much, but it's the best. Also, I'm in a unique position, which is that I was a crazy, massive fangirl, had been to her concerts, had watched every music video, pre-ordered every album. So it was, again, that experience of meeting someone who you are obsessed with and then them, like, being all you'd hoped for. And I'd also told all my friends for a long time, like, I really think that if Taylor and I met, we'd really connect. We have really similar attitudes about the world. We're both processing our life through our art. We've both been criticized for our approaches to romance, and I think we have a lot to share. And they were all like, shut up. Taylor Swift hates you. And then we met, and she's so rad. And getting to know someone who has such an amazing amount of control over their business and an amazing amount of influence and is still, is strong and tough but humble. Like, I can't say enough good things about her. She smells amazing.
I imagine, I have spent a lot of time imagining you being friends together, and I imagine that...
So nice.
Come on, you have to. And I imagine you either go over to her amazing apartment or she comes over to your amazing apartment, and you've spent a day just doing amazing, huge deals and just being incredibly kick-ass and representing people at the UN and kind of forwarding politics and feminism into the future. And you both take a cupcake, and then you put some music on, and then you just go, everything's amazing, and jump up and down, being incredibly joyful and happy at each other and
It's
just
like,
enjoying
each
other.
That's the best description. It is a lot of hanging out in an apartment, either making or procuring baked goods and just like going over some stuff. And it's really nice. And I also just her new album has been the soundtrack to my life. And I love that everyone likes it. Like, I love it. My dad loves it. My lesbian sister loves it. Everybody's like, I'd only pointed out that she's a lesbian just because it's like those songs they're clearly about men.
Yes, very much so.
But it's really profound and beautiful, and she's like the thing kind of keeping the music industry afloat right now. It's really fucking cool.
Yes, it will be the only record that will go platinum this year. That's my geeky record sales knowledge going on
I
there.
knew that too.
Yeah. Hey!
I knew that too, and I bought it on 3 different devices.
I bought it on one, but yes.
I bought it on 3 different devices, and then they said, you already bought this. Are you sure you want to buy it? And I said, yes.
But do you find yourself either consciously or unconsciously doing kind of cool things around her that rhyme a bit in the hopes that she might write a song about you, or
That's an
what you just did?
That's an amazing idea that's never occurred to me. My
start
boyfriend
talking-
tried to get me to write lyrics with him once. He was like, I feel stuck. And I sat down, and it was like 5 minutes, and he was trying to work on a song for a girl who had been formerly on the Disney Channel. There's a number of them, so you can't even pick. And I literally was like, will you love me, or are we just friends? Will you love me when my contract with Disney ends? And he was like, you're fired. So then he sent me flowers once, and the card said, will you love me when my contract with Disney ends, which was really nice.
I've got one big serious question left to ask you, and then 12 very quick fast ones, and then I will have to share you with everybody else in this room, because I know they are starving and hungry for you.
I'm going to share you, too.
No, because I'm not going to say anything at all during that bit. That's the bit where I sit here on my phone going, wow, look at these tweets about this amazing night. I could list 50 favourite bits in Girls, but I think my favourite bit, just in terms of, was the bit where Jessa is going to go and have an abortion, and she comes on her period in a bar. Already this sentence is amazing. You're like, I have never seen this before. This is incredible. This is amazing. And we see the blood on her fingers. And I was just thinking, that is only the second time after the movie Carrie that I have seen menstrual blood represented in popular culture. And it was quite a bad vibe in Carrie. Well, this is
a celebratory vibe because she's so excited. She was having pre-abortion sex, as one does, and
Yes.
and then gets her period, and it's a moment of celebration where she realizes she doesn't have to go through this thing she was so concerned about, and so it's the period blood of liberation.
But what seems so weird to me is that that's such a thing. Like, I mean, you know, the majority of women in this room will have had that thing where you see the blood on your fingers and it's like, yes, I'm not pregnant, amazing. That's such a huge thing. But you never see that on TV, but you never see menstrual blood. And yet you see so much of the other kind of blood where people are being shot in the head or being flensed or being nailed up and crucified.
That's
or
so
kind of.
interesting.
And it's so weird that that's seen as the normal blood. And yet, period, that was such a controversial scene. So many people were like,
Well, it was interesting, and a lot of people also felt that it was a cop-out and a way to not show an abortion on television, which, believe me, I have no problem with. But I felt as though this idea of a character who doesn't even, young women have so much trouble sometimes knowing their bodies and so much fear around their bodies. And, you know, she may have been too scared to take a pregnancy test and just made an appointment assuming that she was, you know, made an appointment assuming she was pregnant. She, you know, it's really hard to, she couldn't be honest with her friends. She said she'd had an exam when she hadn't. Like that feels so real to me. And I was also partially based on the story of a woman who's close to me, who's older, who previous to Roe versus Wade, when abortion was not legal in the US, she was sure she was pregnant and she was going to Puerto Rico to get an abortion, and she got her period at the airport and remembers going, I don't have to get on this plane, turning around with her suitcase. And that was such a kind of chilling image to me, and that was sort of where Jess's story came from. I'm so glad that you liked it, though. That was really, it was funny. I was like running around that day. I was directing, and our prop guy, it was just clear he'd never seen a period before, because the blood was like at first the guy picked his hand up and it was like massacre. It was just like crazy. And I had to be like, no, it's not. He hasn't, like, you know, slaughtered a pig and reached in and pulled out its innards.
But things like that typify why I find it really weird. Like, I can remember reading several times people going, well, you know, how much longer can Lena Dunham just write about the lives of these girls? Like, how much stuff is there about kind of these kind of girls? It's like the majority of things that happen to women in their lives still haven't been written about or put on television. You've got all of this unused material. You've got all of women's experience to pull upon.
Well, it's interesting. I think about this all the time because I started out kind of going like, we're going to do the UK model and be classy and, you know, 14 episodes and a Christmas special and we're out. But the thing that's amazing is I love these characters and I love the idea of following them through their lives, and especially as I find out more about what it means to be a woman in the workplace, to be a woman in a committed relationship, to be a woman dealing with certain kinds of changes in my body, to watch other women I know go through, you know, since we started the show, Jemima's had 2 children, Allison's gotten engaged, Zasha's moved across the country. I've, you know, had a lot of professional experiences that I never imagined. There's been this incredible growth, and it's hard not to imagine reflecting that in the characters and wanting to see, because my desire is always to normalize female experience, and if I can keep doing that, you know, for my age group as we go on, then, you know, I would never quit that job early.
And that is the key thing you have done. That is.
Thank you.
Yeah. In 2014, control of the word normal, what we mean by the word normal, I think is one of the key cultural battlegrounds that we have, and that is why I love girls. I'm going to do my quick fire round while we get ready to get, okay, this will be the best thing actually, because this is going to be a quick fire round of questions. Does anyone here have a question for Lena? We've got.
Yay!
You definitely have a question, I'm hearing that. Cool, okay, now we've got microphones down the front at the left and the front at the right.
There and there, yes.
And we've got one at the back at the right there. I don't know if you can see, if we can turn the house lights up so people, because basically people need to queue up for the microphones. And then we've got one on the top level, on the balcony bit, at the extreme right. If you have a question, make your way to the microphone and we'll try and get through as many as possible. I would just say, I'm sure you're all very lovely people who've thought about this a lot, but from having been to Q&As before, make sure that what you're about to say is a question, not a long and rambling statement about something, because those are the questions I asked, Lena. You're not allowed to do those.
Yeah.
So yes, while you make your way to the microphones at the right and the left and up the top and up there, I'm going to do a quick fire round, which is called When Was the Last Time You?
Okay, this is great. Okay.
So, when was the last time you were drunk?
Drunk? Like 2 years ago?
Blimey.
I've had like half a glass of wine. Did someone just boo? I've had like half a glass of wine and felt like, But no, I haven't been drunk in a long time.
I think the Boo, you have to understand England's relationship to alcohol, which is that we're in massive denial that we have a problem. We're at least 50 years away from...
I totally get it. I get that, yeah, AA is not the cultural institution that it is in the US, and I support you, and would love to be a part of your merrymaking, but I just can't.
No. So long as you hold our collective hair off our faces as we are sick, then that's all we ask from you,
Perfect.
America, that is. I remember having an American friend over here once, and we went out drinking, and they were sort of at a club, and they were like, God, what is this, some kind of festival? Is this some kind of British festival? Is this a special day? And I was just like, no, this is just Tuesday, mate. You should...
I saw some people running from bar to bar, some men running from bar to bar in tutus, and they weren't like cool men on the fringes of culture. They were drunk, straight men.
Yes. That's our future husbands. Please do not. Last time you danced?
Today.
Where?
Today. Where did I dance? I danced in my hotel room to the Taylor Swift album.
You see, that's the kind of thing I imagine you doing. That's lovely. Did you ring Taylor and tell her that?
I did, I think she knows how much I like. I've been tweeting like more than is appropriate, but I danced with my sister. I danced yesterday because I was on Graham Norton and Sia played, so I was doing a little dancing during that. And I love dancing. Do you love dancing?
I find it really dangerous getting to know people in bands and becoming sort of friends with them because I text them every time I listen to their songs. I think they would like that, but I'm starting to realise now that looks like stalking behaviour, and that's probably why Guy Garvey from Elbow is not talking to me anymore. I just need to stop that. Last time you cried?
Last time I cried was probably 2 weeks ago, which I've gone kind of a while because crying's not an irregular occurrence, but I had a challenging few days a few weeks ago and I cried a bunch, and I did it. I was so sad, I'm not going to tell you what about, that I was so sad that I couldn't for once keep my crying private. I was doing it in front of a lot of different people. Everything's okay now, thank you. But there was something kind of nice. Usually I actually try to be pretty contained about it, and there was something nice about just going like, I'm sad, I may cry in front of you. It's just a physical thing that happens when you feel this way, and we're all gonna get through it together.
Do you enjoy a cry? Do you watch yourself cry in the mirror sometimes, just to see?
I've definitely taken a good crying selfie or two.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
yes.
I remember when my college boyfriend broke up with me, it was right when Photo Booth came out, and taking a bunch of photo booth pictures of myself sobbing and emailing them to him. I don't know what I thought was gonna happen. It did not reverse
Really?
the breakup.
That didn't work. Last time you felt out of your depth?
Last time today. I felt out of my depth today. I did a Scandinavian talk show, and everyone was lovely. I was on with James May from Top Gear. What a great guy. I loved him. I really think he's so handsome and nice, but I wasn't prepared. I didn't know it was going to be bilingual. I felt nauseous. I just was like, oh God. I walked out into the studio audience, went in the wrong direction. I just was like, I am not in the right mindset to do this well right now. And I got the people who were around me assured me it was okay, but I felt I got stranger and stranger as the minutes went on.
Last time you complained about something?
Today, too. I have a really bad canker sore.
Oh, what? A really bad what?
A really bad,
Canker sore?
Like an ulcer.
Oh,
I have a mouth ulcer.
Right, okay.
It's not contagious. It's not of the herpes variety. It's just something abraded my inner mouth, and then it's just gone to hell in a handbasket, and I needed a bunch of people to know. I took a picture of it and sent it to my mom.
Ulcer selfies. That's something I've never heard
It was
of
a
before.
sexy ulcer selfie.
Last time you felt like a fan when you met someone?
Today when I met Jennifer Saunders. Everything's happening today. And in a few minutes when I meet the cast of Call the Midwife, and
Yes.
I freak the fuck out.
I know. You are 9 minutes away from that. And then the last question is, last time you thought, that is too expensive, but I am going to buy it?
Last time I thought that is too expensive, but I am going to buy it. That's a great question. I think that, what did I recently purchased something where I was like, I'm just going for it. Oh, they were dog bowls. They were like cute Isaac Mizrahi dog bowls, and I was like, it's not even about me. If the dog doesn't have them, he'll feel so deprived. they weren't like outrageous, but it was like you can just feed your dog food in any bowl. You don't
Yeah.
need special bowls.
Dogs will eat out of bins. They will eat their own feces. That's
dogs
not
will
necessary
eat.
to...
I fed him right out of the can when I was feeling depressed. The dog bowls are just to keep me feeling lively.
Now we know everything. Have we got some questions from the audience?
Thank
Drew, start
you.
up here on the right. Lady up here on the right, that's you. Yes, you, hello.
Lena, big fan.
Thank
what
you.
can we expect from the next series of girls?
Great question. So the next series of Girls comes out in January. It's my favorite season so far. And, you know, we've had a lot of guest stars that I love in the past. My favorite being someone here from the UK, Richard E. Grant.
Yes, Richard's here. Hello, Richard.
Richard's in
Wherever
the
you are.
audience,
Hello,
and I
darling.
just love him so much. He's a gem. But I think the next season, so I can reveal this now because it's public information, Hannah goes to graduate school. And so that was really, really fun to shoot because I never went to graduate school. And so this was this sort of, you know, I got to go to this, we had all these actors playing my classmates, and I got to have this sort of faux graduate school experience, this man-made graduate school, woman-made graduate school experience. And I loved seeing and playing Hannah in this new context where she was attempting to behave like what she thought a model student would be. And it created a new dynamic. And I felt it was time for her as a character to make some kind of attempt to keep growing. And obviously this is Girls, so she's not like aces at it, but it was really a joy to do.
Cool, thank you. Cool question, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And then we'll go over here. Oh, nice jacket, hello.
Yeah.
Hi. I was wondering, I've been watching all the series, rewatching them and anticipating of this evening. I've been really excited. And I
Thank you.
rewatched Tiny Furniture, which I loved.
Thank
and,
you.
And I'm an art historian, so I love your mum's work as well. I knew her first.
Amazing.
And I was thinking to myself, and it's not meaning to be a downer question, but I was wondering, have you rewatched Tiny Furniture a few times? And have you thought to yourself, oh, I do this bit differently? Because, you know, I love the ending, but so many of my friends are like, oh, I don't get the ending. And I'm like, no, I love the ending. And I wondered, do you revisit it and go, oh, should I do this differently? Or?
I think the last time I watched the movie was about 2 years ago, and it's probably due for a rewatch. And the last time I watched it, I remember noticing some sort of awkwardness in timing and certain edits that didn't feel right to me, and just things that I had learned through the process of making and finessing a few seasons of Girls that I felt like, you know, there's no substitute for experience. And so there were technical things, but the ending was something I always felt really proud of. I know a lot of people had confusion, like, what does it mean? But I was like, I'm not David Lynch. It's just, you know, what it seems like, which is a girl kind of who's sort of feeling the march of time onward or something. But, you know, when I rewatched it, I tend to look at my old work with a lot of sympathy for my former self, because I feel like there's something really sort of brave about making things at any point, no matter how well you do it. And so I always want to just kind of like, I think it's a nice way to look at your old work, no matter what medium it is to look back and kind of hug yourself for trying.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Lovely green top, hello.
Hi.
Hi. I was just wondering, I think Caitlin described you in 3 words as determined, bright, and filthy, which are fabulous words. And I just wondered what words you would use to describe yourself.
That's so nice what she said. I guess right now I would use sleepy, invigorated, mad. But that could change at any moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, lady in the green top now. Sorry, it's your go now. Sorry, darling.
That was
Sorry.
really weird.
I know, I was like, oh, where is she?
I know, it's like amazing ventriloquy, yeah, sorry.
I know.
I watch Girls and I'm really fascinated. I'm slightly older, I think, than the target audience. I always think, how different is that from
You
my
look
life?
great from here.
Thank you. But one of the things you've been criticised for, or the programme's been criticised for, is how it is mostly a white cast.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you could say a little bit about your choices there.
100%. It's something I've thought a lot about since the show started. I've told this to Caitlin, but there's a lot of criticism I don't care about. I don't care about being called fat. I don't care about being called unlikable. I do care when I hear from women that they feel excluded by anything that I've made, because that is exactly counter to what I feel my purpose is on Earth, and that doesn't mean that I can accurately represent everyone's experience, but what I can do is really engage the dialogue, and I feel like two things. One is I started the show when I was 23 with 10 episodes. I'm 28 now, and my hope is that as I've grown and we've been given more real estate, that the show continues to grow and expand and include more voices and stories. And I'm really excited about some of the diverse characters that we have in the next season. I can't wait for people's feedback to see if they feel the same way. And then the other thing that it really brought up for me was the problem of representation in television, and the fact that the issue is that besides the fact that, well, here's the issue. People need to see themselves on television because it's sort of our people's medium, and it's so important that every woman sees a version of herself. But what's really important is that more women be put in positions of power to make that television and to tell their stories. So I really hope, through the production company that I'm working on with my partner on the show, Jenny Connor, and through, whatever little scrap of power I've been given, that I can be helpful in bringing those other voices to television who can tell their story better than I might be equipped to, because there are so many particularities and complexities to being a feminist and to being a woman of color that I can empathize with, but are not my experience. And so one of my biggest goals right now is to be, a force in bringing a wider range of women to positions of power in television, and also, just to continue this dialogue, which is an important one, and I feel grateful to have been brought into.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
And I feel I should maybe quickly say something here as well, because I did sort of get embroiled in the race issue sort of when I was defending Lena, because I sent out a rather injudicious tweet. And the thing I'd like to say, just to clear up, but I suspect is what Lena's saying as well, is that this is an incredibly racist industry. You only have to look at who is in charge of commissioning things, and the proportion of people of colour and, of any minority non-represented on television to go, this is an incredibly racist, straight white male industry to work in. So do you need to be looking at the people who have power, who can commission these things and give people their own shows and let these people's voices speak out and platform people? Absolutely yes. I don't think there's anybody, if you're a feminist, you believe in enabling everybody's voices. But one of the things I felt bad for Lena about was that she was being called, the word racist was being used against girls. And I think that's a very interesting and potentially dangerous way of framing a debate, to say that someone can be racist by omission. If that's a new debate that we need to have, it's not one that I've heard before. I don't think you can accuse someone of racism. You can say, here's something you haven't done, but I think that's a big word that we use for very serious things and very specific things, and I don't think that you can say that you're racist by omission. I don't know whether I'm speaking out of turn for Lena there, but my logic to that was, do people need to be more represented? Absolutely yes. Is this industry horribly unrepresentative? Yes. Can you call an artist who's writing something that is semi-autobiographical about their personal experiences in one series racist for omission, for simply not doing something? I cannot see the logic in that.
But I definitely want to make it clear that I feel, I'm grateful for what Caitlin said, but I really feel like this is a conversation that needs to happen, and if my show was the one that was going to, and I were the one that was going to take one for the team to start the conversation, then I'm all in, I'm not complaining, I want to be there, and I want to hear, and that's to me, there are definitely things that I've learned about what it means to be a feminist and a woman of color that I did not know or have an awareness of, growing up as a white upper middle class woman, that I feel so grateful for the way that certain people on the internet and beyond have ushered me through that conversation and been generous with their time and their educational tools, because part of being a feminist is looking out for equality for everyone and making sure that every woman and person is covered, because that is the essential bedrock upon which feminism is built. And we all are not born into this world knowing everything. We have to be open to experience and change and to understanding what we don't know.
Oh God, no, absolutely. The point where it becomes
of course. I'm not disagreeing with you. I was just continuing. I don't
Oh,
disagree
no,
with
anything
you.
that starts a conversation is fantastic. I guess
Yeah.
it was just that kind of, do we
Of
need
course.
do we need to be angry about this? Do we need, it's brilliant that conversation
Of course.
starts.
I
I was
think-
just upset that people were being horrible to you.
Well, thank you. And I think what people are so angry about is not seeing themselves. And that's something that it's like, I have sympathy for, because that's why I made this show, because I didn't see myself. And so I could not relate to that experience more. And now I just want to keep moving forward and absorbing more and more of this.
Yes, no, thank you for that question.
Thank you.
We've got time for one more, and then I guess it's you there. Hello.
Hi, sorry for yelling earlier. I do apologise.
I
Oh,
love
were you the one
it.
going me?
Everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, that was me. I'm sorry.
I'm glad that now, I was worried that you were going to yell and then not get your chance at the mic, so I'm thrilled.
Oh no, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Good.
Basically, this sounds like a really stupid question, I'm sure, but I left a horrible marriage, and it was thanks to your writing and your television program that made me feel like I was strong enough to leave. And I just wanted you to know that you're my hero, and that who's yours, because you're mine.
That Aw. means... Thank you. Well, that's the second time that I've cried recently, but I just thank you. That means so much to me, more than you will ever know, and I will carry it with me. And remember your beautiful tattooed form over there. And I have a lot of heroes, like an incredible range of women who have, informed my life and my politics. My heroes are everyone from, Nora Ephron, to whom this book is dedicated, to Janet Mock, who's a female trans activist who is making it clear that sort of gender is so much more complex than we understand, and we're so much farther from acceptance than we knew. I love people who put themselves, Sandra Fluke, who totally took on the reproductive rights battle in the U.S. and didn't stand down when she was being attacked in a way that no human should have to endure. I think that we're living in this golden age of women taking action, and I feel so lucky to get to say that there's such a vast range of, women who thrill and excite me, and like everyone, I care a lot about Beyonce. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's where we're going to have to end it now. I'm so sorry we're over time. And that's the perfect place to leave it, really. Just kind of a list of inspiring women and the realization that this is probably the best time in history to be a woman right now.
It is. It just keeps getting better,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. There's a lot of things that have gotten worse, but this has gotten better,
Yes.
I think.
Well, that's the perfect note to end it on. Everybody, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Lena
Thank you,
Dunham.
Caitlin Moran. Thank